Hello from gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and you are very welcome to this October year in the life of the green border, which is the border here behind me. So every month I come along and look at this particular border, talk about what plants are looking good and what jobs need to be done in that border in that month. So it's October, yes, autumn, downtime, but we have lots to do. So let's have a look at the green border in October. And you are very welcome to this video all about the green border, which is the border that you see me standing beside now. And as you can tell, it's October. Autumn is very much in the air and it's chilly out here today, but we do have a clear, unwet day. So it's time for me to tell you all about what I've been doing here in the border this month. And I guess you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you that the month of October was a really, really wet month here in Ireland and in Wexford in particular. We had lots and lots of rain and we had wind and we had all of the bad things. Certainly not conducive to going out and doing stuff in the garden, but I did get some important work done. And I always feel that time spent in your garden at this time of year is so amply rewarded next spring. You don't feel like it, you don't want to go out, but if you can get on top of the weeds, for example, at this time of year, then you just won't be running to catch your tail in spring when everything is happening at the same time. But the main thing that I got done in this border in October was to plant tulips. And I planted a beautiful white tulip with a yellow throat called Purissima. It's goblet shaped and opens fully when in full sun, and one that I've grown reliably in my garden for very many years. And this is a tulip that will come back again, and that's important. If you missed my recent video about tulips to choose if you want ones that will come back year on year, then do check out that video, which I'll link to at the end. As we all know, with tulips, usually we get a fantastic show the first year, and then the following year perhaps half the tulip numbers come up, and then the third year you're down to a smattering. So it can be quite disappointing, but if you know what to look out for, what to choose, what to buy, then you can look forward to getting those tulips coming back in your garden and brightening it up in spring for many years to come. So the tulip I chose, as I said, is called Purissima, and it is a Fosteriana type, which is a botanic tulip, and therefore I didn't have to plant it too deeply. 6 inches is sufficient for botanic tulips. And I managed to jam 142 tulips into this border. So that was the maximum I could get in here without encroaching on the space of other plants. Now, of course, to plant tulips, it's not as simple as just taking your bag of tulips and going out to the garden. There's an amount of clearing that needs to be done first. So before I planted these tulips, what I had to do was to cut back some perennials, ones that perhaps I wouldn't have cut back so early otherwise, and just clear space. And then I was able to see what was what really, and where the space was for planting those tulips. So I can't wait until spring next year when they are going to be absolutely magnificent. You can see now that the majority of the perennials have been cut back, and what we're looking at is mostly evergreen plants. So we have the Melanoselinum here on the right, there's an Echium in the middle, we've got Diplerina at the front, and a splodge of colour in the form of a Dahlia. And I haven't lifted the Dahlias yet because we haven't had the first frost, and you kind of need the first frost to help those Dahlia bulbs set flower for next year. So it's always advisable to wait until the first frost before lifting them. And just down from the Dahlia we have my Eucomis, who has definitely seen better days and decided to trip over its support cage. So that's the end of that for this year. It's a plant that I'll be leaving in the ground and protecting over winter just with an upturned clay pot. And over here behind the Melanoselinum we have the skeleton of the conifer tree that I cut down just here, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But what is really looking good at the moment is the Hedychium in the border, which is that yellow one down here. And this is a plant that I brought back from the Azores Islands when I was there 2 years ago, one that was being discarded, and it's its first flowering, so I'm really pleased with how well it's flowered. I just hope that otherwise in other years it might flower a bit earlier, because this is very, very late and it happens to be the only thing that's looking good at the moment, except for the grasses, and grasses really come into their own at this time of year. The ones here at the front add a lot of movement and interest in the border, and I'm just giving you a shot here with my back to the greenhouse looking out into the garden, just with the front of the border in view here. So the Echium on the left, the grasses in the middle, and Melanoselinum on the right, because I wanted to show you the cherry blossom tree, which has a magnificent show of colourful leaves now at the moment. And that's one of the things I really, really love about cherry blossom trees. They have 2 seasons of interest, fabulous, fabulous flowers in spring, but their autumn colour is certainly not to be discounted, because that adds so much to my garden at the moment. And just a quick word about the conifer tree that I planted clematis around not very long ago, and that one there is certainly looking good. But the conifer is just very bare and doing nothing. And somebody asked me, would it not come back? Would it not re-sprout? And the answer to that question is quite simply no. That's not what conifers do. Conifers, if you cut into non-green branches, they will not re-sprout. There are a handful whose names escape me just at the moment, that will re-sprout, but for the vast majority of them they don't do that. So it's very important how you trim your conifer. When cutting back, always cut so that you leave green. If you cut back into dead wood, then really that's the end of your tree, or that portion of your tree, and you're just going to be left with an ugly stump going forward. So this tree was cut back. I got rid of all the green stuff, and that's the end of it really. But the skeleton will persist for several years, and I will use that skeleton to grow my beautiful clematis up. And just standing back here giving you a wider view of this border, it has more going on the right than on the left, because by chance a majority of evergreen plants tend to be on the right and the ones on the left not so much so. But yeah, it's downtime. It's winding down and retreating underground so that its roots can grow and grow over winter. And you may think there's nothing going on in a border in winter, but what it's really doing is growing its roots, and it will be back in joyful exuberance again in spring. And already we've come to the end of this video about October of the green border, this border here behind me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've managed to get out into your garden and sort it out for spring, because winter is certainly fast coming. I don't know if I will make an episode of this video for November and December, because there's not a lot going to happen. Perhaps I'll just make one for the 2 months anyway. Tell me down below what your thoughts are. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this series, Year in the Life of a Border, the Green Border. If it's your first time watching, then do remember that there are other series that I did previously on different borders in the garden, and I'm currently trying to decide which border I will do next year for Year in the Life of a Border, with a different spot, different location, different soil, different plants, all that kind of thing. And yeah, so if you have any thoughts on that, do let me know. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!